Screeching tires, shattering glass, metal crunching like a discarded soda can. Not exactly the soundtrack to a perfect life, right? But that was my reality the moment everything changed. The moment, well, the moment I died. It happened so fast. One minute I was laughing, the radio blasting some cheesy pop song, the sun shining through the windshield. The next minute, darkness. A blinding flash of light, a deafening roar, and then nothing. But before the nothing, there was the fear. The gut-wrenching, heart-stopping, oh my God, I'm about to die kind of fear. I remember the feeling of weightlessness, the world spinning, the knowledge that this was it, the end. And then, as my life flashed before my eyes, which by the way is a real thing, apparently, I saw them, James and Melanie, my fiance, and my best friend. The two people I trusted most in the world. The two people who, well, let's just say they weren't exactly who I thought they were. I saw the smiles, the hugs, the I love yous, but I also saw the subtle glances, the whispered conversations, the moments of insincerity that I'd chosen to ignore, like the time James forgot our anniversary, blaming it on a big project at work, when I later found out he'd been having dinner with Melanie, alone. Or the time Melanie accidentally spilled red wine on my new dress, the one I'd been saving for a special occasion, the one, well, the one she knew James had helped me pick out. And then there were the comments, the subtle digs, the backhanded compliments, the the way they'd always seemed to be a little too close, a little too comfortable, a little too, well, let's just say they weren't exactly radiating platonic best friendship vibes. I'd brushed it off, of course. James was just stressed. Melanie was just being silly. And I was, well, I was blinded by love, by trust, by by the naive belief that my perfect life was actually perfect. But as I lay there, my body broken, my life slipping away, I realized I'd been wrong. So wrong. They weren't who I thought they were. They were, well, let's just say they weren't exactly the poster children for loyalty and compassion. And as the darkness closed in, as the final breath escaped my lips, as the as the world faded away, I felt not just fear, not just pain, but betrayal. A deep, gut-wrenching betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound. They'd used me. They'd lied to me. They'd been waiting for this, waiting for me to, well, to get out of the way. And as my consciousness slipped away, as I crossed over to the other side, I swore I'd be back. I'd make them pay. They wouldn't get away with this. Not this time. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning. A chance for revenge, a chance for justice, a chance, a chance to show them what happens when you mess with Cassandra Layton. Okay, so the aftermath. Let's just say it wasn't exactly a Hallmark movie montage of tearful goodbyes and heartfelt eulogies, more like a reality TV show about vultures circling a carcass. Only the carcass was me. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I was dead, not decaying. Yet. James and Melanie, my loving fiancé and best friend, were, well, let's just say they weren't exactly drowning in grief. More like paddling in a shallow pool of crocodile tears. They put on a good show for the family, the friends, the Instagram followers, the obligatory sad faces, the dramatic sighs, the we'll never forget her speeches. But behind the scenes, well, let's just say their true colors started to show. The funeral was a blur. I wasn't there, obviously, but I could feel it. The forced sadness, the whispered conversations, the way they kept glancing at each other, a kind of shared secret in their eyes. Then came the reading of the will. My will. The one I'd written a year ago, full of hope for the future, trust in my loved ones, and, well, naivety. Let's just say I wasn't exactly expecting to be betrayed by the two people closest to me. My company, the one I'd poured my heart and soul into, the one I'd built from the ground up, gone, taken over. By James, of course, with Melanie conveniently by his side, offering support and guidance. My shares, my assets, my legacy, poof, vanished. Like I'd never existed. And then there was the house, our house, the one we'd picked out together, the one we'd filled with laughter and, well, what I thought was love. It was sold, quickly. The contents divvied up between James and Melanie, like they were already a couple. My photos, my belongings, my memories, tossed aside, discarded, erased. It was like I'd never been there, like I was a ghost, haunting the lives of the people who'd basically danced on my grave. And the insensitivity? Oh, it was breathtaking. They were seen together everywhere. Restaurants, clubs, even our favorite little coffee shop, holding hands, laughing, acting like they were the it couple, the ones who'd always been meant to be. It was sickening. It was infuriating. It was exactly what I'd expected from them, deep down. They were greedy, selfish, and, well, let's just say they weren't exactly overflowing with empathy. They'd gotten away with it. They'd profited from my death, erased my existence, and, well, moved on like I was nothing more than a stepping stone to their own happiness. But they were wrong. So wrong. I wasn't gone. I was just waiting for my chance to come back, to reclaim what was mine, to make them regret everything. Their insensitivity, their greed, their betrayal. They thought they'd won, but they were about to learn. They'd messed with the wrong ghost. Okay, so waking up dead, not exactly on my bucket list. But hey, life, or afterlife, throws curveballs, right? Especially when you're Cassandra Layton, former it girl, now apparently Vivienne Laurent, heiress extraordinaire. I woke up with a gasp, my heart pounding like a drum solo, my lungs screaming for air. Which was weird considering I was, dead. Or was I? I looked around the room, a luxurious, opulent space that looked like it belonged in a palace. Not a hospital room. Everything was white and gold, with plush carpets, silk drapes, and a chandelier that could probably blind a small country. Definitely not the sterile, antiseptic environment I was expecting in the afterlife. My body felt different, lighter, stronger, healthier. I moved my arms, my legs, my fingers, and, well, everything worked perfectly. Too perfectly. I felt amazing, like I'd been given a brand new body, a supercharged, upgraded version of my old one. I sat up, my head spinning, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. Where was I? What had happened? Was this some kind of, oh, elaborate dream? A hallucination? A really weird form of purgatory? I stumbled out of bed, my feet sinking into the plush carpet, and walked to the mirror. And that's when I saw her, Vivienne Laurent. Or, well, someone who looked exactly like Cassandra Layton. It was me, but not me. The same face, the same eyes, the same everything, but different. Healthier, stronger, more vibrant, like someone had taken my old self and given her a makeover, inside and out. I touched the mirror, my fingers tracing the familiar contours of my face, the curve of my jaw, the scar above my eyebrow that I'd gotten when I was 10, the one I'd completely forgotten about. It was all there, but different, enhanced, like I was a better version of myself. The memories started flooding back, not my memories, but hers, Vivian's. A life of privilege, wealth, power, a family dynasty, a business empire, a terminal illness. She had been dying, slowly, painfully, wasting away. And then she was gone, just like that. And now I was her. It was a mind-bending, reality-altering, what the actual heck is going on moment. I was Cassandra Layton, dead and gone, but also Vivienne Laurent, alive and well. It was like I'd been given a second chance, a new life, a do-over. But why? Why me? Why her? What was the point of this bizarre reincarnation? The questions swirled in my mind, a chaotic mess of confusion and disbelief. But as I slowly pieced together the fragments of Vivian's life, her family, her circumstances, her potential, a different feeling started to emerge. Not confusion, not disbelief, but excitement. This wasn't just a second chance. It was an opportunity, a chance to rewrite my story, to reclaim what was lost, to to make those who wronged me pay. James and Melanie, the two people who'd betrayed me, who'd profited from my death, who'd basically danced on my grave. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They were wrong, so wrong. I was back, not as Cassandra, but as Vivian. And I was going to make them regret everything. Their betrayal, their greed, their insensitivity. They thought they'd won, but they were about to learn. They'd messed with the wrong ghost. Or in this case, the wrong heiress. Okay, so the family, let's just say they weren't exactly the Brady Bunch, more like the Game of Thrones, with less dragons and more designer suits. Vivian's family, the Laurents, they were complicated, rich, powerful, and let's just say they weren't exactly overflowing with warm fuzzies. My father, William Laurent, was a force of nature, a self-made billionaire, a business tycoon, well, a man who looked like he could crush a diamond with his bare hands. He was intimidating, to say the least. His eyes were sharp, his voice was like gravel, and his presence, well, it filled the room, even when he was just standing there, silently judging you. He was shocked, of course, when I woke up. The doctors had declared me dead. The family was already squabbling over the inheritance. And, well, let's just say my sudden resurrection wasn't exactly part of the plan, but beneath the shock, there was suspicion, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a question mark hanging in the air. He studied me, his gaze intense, his expression unreadable. Was I really Vivian? Or was I an imposter? A fraud? A, well, a ghost come back to haunt them? Then there were the cousins. Oh, the cousins. A pack of wolves, circling, waiting, ready to pounce on the inheritance, the power, the Laurent legacy. They were all smiles and condolences when I was dead, but now, well, let's just say their smiles were a little less genuine, their condolences a little less heartfelt. There was Charles, the eldest, a slick, ambitious lawyer who looked like he'd sell his own grandmother for a seat on the board. And there was Emily, the youngest, a socialite with a penchant for designer clothes and gossip, who looked like she'd rather die than wear last season's Chanel. They were, let's just say they weren't exactly thrilled about my sudden reappearance. They'd been so close to getting their hands on the Laurent fortune, the power, the everything, and now I was back, an obstacle, a threat, a pain in their perfectly sculpted behinds. And then there was the stepmother. Oh, the stepmother, Isabelle Laurent, a former model, a social climber, a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of the pages of a Vogue magazine. She was beautiful, elegant, and let's just say she wasn't exactly shedding tears of joy over my miraculous recovery. She'd been waiting for this, for me to disappear. She'd been playing the role of the dutiful wife, the caring stepmother. But behind the scenes, let's just say she wasn't exactly rooting for my survival. She'd been so close to becoming the matriarch of the Laurent family, the one with the power, the influence, the everything. And now I was back, a thorn in her perfectly manicured side, a reminder of the life she'd almost had. The family dynamics were, let's just say they were more complicated than a soap opera plotline. There were alliances, betrayals, secrets, and, enough drama to fuel a reality TV show for a decade, but I wasn't intimidated. Not anymore. I was Cassandra Layton, the girl who'd been betrayed, who'd been erased, who'd been given a second chance. And I was also Vivian Laurent, the heiress, the businesswoman, the one with the power. And as I sat at the head of the Laurent table, my father watching me with suspicion, my cousins glaring with envy, my stepmother smiling with thinly veiled hostility, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. This was my new family, my new life, my my new battlefield, and I was ready for war. Okay, so Operation Reclaim My Life and Make Them Pay was officially a go. But it wasn't as simple as throwing money at the problem or hiring a hitman, though, let's be honest, that crossed my mind a few times. No, this was about strategy, about playing the long game, about being smarter, stronger, and more ruthless than they ever imagined. First, I had to deal with the family. The Lawrence were like a pack of wolves, each one vying for power, each one ready to tear the others down to get what they wanted. And me? I was the new alpha, the unexpected leader, the, well, the one they underestimated. Vivian, darling, Isabel, my stepmother, purred, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. It's so wonderful to have you back. We were so worried. Worried about the inheritance, you mean? I said, my voice flat, my gaze unwavering. Her smile faltered, a flicker of surprise crossing her perfectly Botoxed face. Of course not, darling. We were worried about you. Right, I said, raising an eyebrow. Because that's what families do. They worry about each other. The cousins, Charles and Emily, exchanged nervous glances. They weren't used to this Vivian, this confident, assertive woman who wasn't afraid to call them out on their BS. The old Vivian, the one who was sick, weak, and, well, let's be honest, a little bit clueless, had been easy to manipulate, easy to control. But this Vivian, this Cassandra in Vivian's body, she was a different story. So, I said, leaning back in my chair, my gaze sweeping across the room, what's the agenda for today? Besides plotting how to divide up my fortune, my father, William, cleared his throat. His eyes narrowed. Vivian, there are matters to discuss. Business matters, family matters. Indeed, I said, my voice laced with a hint of steel. And I'm sure you'll all be happy to fill me in. But first, I have a few, matters of my own to attend to. I stood up, my gaze meeting each of theirs in turn. There are some people who have wronged me. I'm going to reclaim what's mine. I said, my voice firm, my resolve unwavering. My company, my assets, my life. And then, I added, my voice dropping to a whisper, I'm going to make them pay. They stared at me, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, disbelief, and a grudging respect. They'd underestimated me, just like James and Melanie had. They'd seen me as a weak, vulnerable woman, a pawn in their game of power and greed. They were wrong. So wrong. I wasn't just Vivienne Laurent, the heiress. I was Cassandra Layton, the survivor, the fighter, the one who was going to win. And as I walked out of the room, their eyes following me, their whispers echoing behind me, I knew I was in control. This was my game now, and I was playing to win. The plan was simple, in theory. First, I'd reclaim my company, my legacy, my everything that James and Melanie had stolen. I'd use Vivian's resources, her connections, her everything to expose their lies, their deceit, their general awfulness. Then, I'd make them suffer. Not physically, not violently, but psychologically. I'd make them question their reality, their sanity, their everything. I'd make them regret the day they ever crossed Cassandra Layton. It was a long game, a calculated game, a game I was determined to win, because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity, my power. And as I sat down at Vivian's desk, the Laurent empire at my fingertips, a smile playing on my lips, I knew. I was ready. Bring it on, world. Bring it on, James and Melanie. I was Vivienne Laurent, and I was unstoppable. Okay, so the grand entrance. It wasn't just any public appearance. Oh no. This was the annual Laurent Charity Gala, the social event of the season, the one where everyone who was anyone showed up to flaunt their designer dresses, their million-dollar jewels, and their general fabulousness. I was ready. Vivienne's stylist. Yes, she had a stylist and a makeup artist and a personal trainer and, Basically, an entire entourage dedicated to making her look like a goddess had worked their magic. My hair was perfectly coiffed, my makeup was flawless, and my dress, well, let's just say it was the kind of dress that could make heads turn and jaws drop. It was red, of course, bold, daring, and, well, a little bit, I'm back and you're screwed. I walked into the ballroom, my arm linked with my father, William, my head held high, my smile, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly radiating warmth and kindness. It was more like a I'm here to reclaim my kingdom and you're all peasants kind of smile. The room went silent. Heads turned, jaws dropped, and, well, I'm pretty sure a few champagne flutes slipped from manicured fingers. They were staring, of course, staring at me, at the dead heiress, the one who'd miraculously returned, the one who, well, the one who looked exactly like Cassandra Layton. And then I saw them, James and Melanie, standing near the bar, their faces a mixture of, well, it was hard to tell, shock, disbelief, maybe even a hint of fear. They froze, their smiles plastered on their faces, their eyes wide with, well, let's just say they weren't exactly radiating joy. They looked like they'd seen a ghost, which, in a way, they had. I walked towards them, my steps deliberate, my gaze unwavering. I could feel their eyes on me, their whispers echoing in my ears. Is it? But how? I stopped in front of them, my smile widening, my eyes locking with theirs. Hello, James, I said, my voice smooth, my tone, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly friendly. Melanie, fancy meeting you here. Their faces went white, their smiles vanished, and, well, I'm pretty sure Melanie almost choked on her champagne. Cassandra? James stammered, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes wide with, well, let's just say they weren't exactly filled with love and longing. Not exactly, I said, my smile widening, but you can call me Vivienne. I extended my hand, my fingers perfectly manicured, my nails painted a deep blood red. Vivienne Laurent, I said, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering. It's a pleasure to re-meet you. They stared at my hand, their faces pale, their eyes darting between me and each other. They didn't take it. They couldn't. They were, well, let's just say they were a little bit speechless. And as I stood there, the dead girl come back to life, the heiress with the power, the woman they'd betrayed, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. This was just the beginning. The first act in a play of revenge, a drama of justice, a show they wouldn't soon forget. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They were wrong. So wrong. I was back, and I was just getting started. Okay, so the family feud. It wasn't just a little disagreement over who got to use the private jet first. Oh no. This was a full-blown power struggle, a battle for control of the Laurent Empire, a war with more casualties than a season of Game of Thrones. My loving family, the ones who were all smiles and condolences when they thought I was dead, were now, let's just say they weren't exactly thrilled about my miraculous resurrection, especially when they realized I wasn't the same Vivienne they'd known before. The old Vivienne, the one who was sick, weak, and easily manipulated, she was gone. Replaced by me, Cassandra Layton, the woman who'd been betrayed, erased, and, given a second chance. Vivienne, darling, Isabel, my stepmother, purred, her voice dripping with fake concern. You really shouldn't be overexerting yourself. You've been through so much. I'm fine, Isabel, I said, my voice flat, my gaze unwavering. I'm stronger than I look. Of course, darling, she said, her smile strained. But still, perhaps you should leave the business matters to those of us who are more experienced. Experienced in what? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Greed? Deception? Backstabbing? Her smile faltered, a flicker of anger crossing her perfectly Botoxed face. I don't know what you're implying, Vivienne. Oh, I think you do, I said, my voice laced with a hint of steel. I'm not the naive little girl you thought I was. I know what you're all after, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. The cousins, Charles and Emily, exchanged nervous glances. They'd been trying to undermine me, subtly at first, with whispers and suggestions, but now, well, now they were starting to realize they were playing with fire. Vivian, Charles said, his voice smooth, his smile insincere. We're just trying to help, to guide you. You've been away for so long, you might need some time to adjust. Adjust to what? I asked, my voice sharp. To being surrounded by vultures, to being treated like a pawn in your little game of power? That's not fair, Vivian, Emily whined, her voice dripping with fake innocence. We're family. We just want what's best for you. What's best for you mean? I corrected, my gaze piercing through her facade. They were stunned, these Laurents. They weren't used to being challenged, to being called out, well, to being treated like anything less than royalty. But I wasn't playing their game. I was playing my own. I started making my moves strategically, carefully, like a chess player anticipating their opponent's every move. I formed alliances with unexpected allies, people they'd underestimated, people they'd overlooked. I gathered information, built my case, and, well, let's just say I wasn't afraid to play dirty. I exposed their secrets, their lies, their general awfulness. I used their own greed against them, their own ambition, their own stupidity, and slowly, gradually, the tides started to turn. The whispers turned to doubts, the doubts turned to suspicions, and the suspicions turned to, well, let's just say they weren't exactly sending each other Christmas cards anymore. They tried to fight back, of course. They spread rumors, they planted doubts, they did everything they could to discredit me, to undermine me, to get rid of me. But I was ready for them. I had my evidence, my allies, and, let's just say I wasn't afraid to use them. And as the power struggle raged on, as the Laurent Empire teetered on the brink of collapse, as the family tore itself apart, I stood strong, unwavering, unbreakable. I was Vivienne Laurent, the heiress, the businesswoman, the one with the power, but I was also Cassandra Layton, the survivor, the fighter, the one who was going to win. And as I watched them crumble, their smiles fading, their confidence shattered, their dreams of power turning to dust, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. This was just the beginning, the first act in a play of revenge, a drama of justice, a show they wouldn't soon forget. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They were wrong, so wrong. I was back, and I was just getting started. Okay, so revenge. It's a dish best served cold, right? Well, mine was served with a side of ice-cold Laurent fury and a sprinkle of you messed with the wrong girl spice. James and Melanie, the dynamic duo of betrayal, were about to learn that their little scheme had backfired spectacularly. First up, James. He'd been so smug, so confident, taking over my company, acting like he was the mastermind behind its success. Newsflash, buddy, I built that company from the ground up, with blood, sweat, and a whole lot of caffeine. You just waltzed in and stole it, like the opportunistic little, let's just say he wasn't exactly winning any integrity awards. So I did what any self-respecting, newly minted billionairess would do. I bought his company. Not just any buyout. Oh no, this was a hostile takeover, a we're coming for your assets and your dignity kind of deal. I used Vivian's resources, her connections, her everything to dismantle his little empire, piece by piece, until he was left with nothing but a cardboard box and a bruised ego. James, darling, I purred, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. When he called, his voice a mixture of panic and rage, I'm so sorry to hear about your financial difficulties, but don't worry, I'm sure you'll land on your feet. You're resourceful. He sputtered. He raged. Let's just say he wasn't exactly happy about the situation, but there was nothing he could do. I'd outmaneuvered him, outplayed him, and, let's just say I'd outmoneyed him. Next up, Melanie, my best friend, the one who'd stab me in the back while smiling to my face. She'd been living the high life, flaunting her newfound wealth, her designer clothes, her general I'm better than you attitude. Time for a reality check, honey. I dug into her past, her secrets, her dirty little laundry. Turns out Melanie wasn't exactly the innocent angel she pretended to be. There were shady deals, questionable connections, and, let's just say her social media presence was about to get a whole lot less glamorous. I leaked the information, anonymously, of course, to the press, the gossip blogs, the internet. And the internet, bless its gossipy little heart, did what it does best. It exploded. Melanie's reputation was tarnished. Her social circle shrunk, and, let's just say her invitations to the exclusive parties suddenly dried up. Melanie, darling, I said, my voice dripping with mock concern, when I bumped into her at a charity event. Yes, I still went to those because why not? I'm so sorry to hear about your little predicament. But hey, at least you still have James, right? Her face went white, her eyes wide with, let's just say they weren't exactly filled with gratitude. She mumbled something about misunderstandings and false accusations, but I just smiled and patted her hand. Oh, I'm sure it will all blow over, I said, my voice sweet, my smile. Let's just say it wasn't exactly reassuring. But the real revenge, the one that truly satisfied my soul, was the psychological torment. I made sure they saw me, everywhere. At events, at restaurants, even. At their favorite little coffee shop, which, by the way, I now owned. I'd smile, I'd wave, I'd basically haunt their existence. They started to question their sanity, their reality, their everything. Was I really dead? Was I a ghost? A figment of their guilty imaginations? Or was I just messing with them? The answer, my friends, was yes, to all of the above. And as I watched them squirm, their smiles fading, their confidence crumbling, their perfect little world falling apart, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. This was my revenge, my justice, my way of saying, you messed with the wrong girl. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They were wrong, so wrong. I was back. Okay, so the comeback attempt. Predictable, right? James, stripped of his ill-gotten gains and facing the consequences of his actions, suddenly realized the error of his ways. Or more likely, he realized the extent of my newfound power and wealth. Love? Nah, that ship had sailed, crashed, and sunk to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. He showed up at my office, looking like a wilted flower, his eyes pleading, his voice a pathetic croak. Vivian, he began, his voice cracking. I need to talk to you. About what? I asked, my voice cool, my gaze fixed on the cityscape outside my window. The Luron penthouse offered a breathtaking view, a reminder of my current position, my unassailable power. About us, he said, his voice barely a whisper. About what we had. I turned to face him, my eyebrow arched, a smirk playing on my lips. What we had? James, you were engaged to my best friend weeks after my supposed death. I think the term what we had is a bit of a stretch, don't you? He flinched, his face paling. I know, it was a mistake. I was grieving, confused. Grieving? I scoffed. You were celebrating my demise, my absence, my inability to stop you from taking everything I'd worked for. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. Don't insult my intelligence, James. I know what you did. I know why you did it. And I'm not interested in your excuses. He looked down, his shoulders slumped, his face a mask of, let's just say it wasn't exactly remorse. It was more like regret. Regret that he'd been caught. Regret that he'd lost his chance to be a Laurent. Regret that, regret that he'd underestimated me. Vivian, he said, his voice pleading, I know I messed up, but I've changed. I realize now what I truly lost. You, your love, your everything. I laughed, a cold, humorless sound that echoed through the spacious office. My love? James, you never loved me. You loved what I represented. The stability, the support, the, the stepping stone to your own ambitions. He looked up, his eyes wide with, let's just say they weren't exactly filled with love and longing. They were filled with, uh, desperation. The desperation of a man who'd lost his meal ticket, his safety net, his, well, his chance to be a part of something bigger than himself. Vivian, he pleaded, please, give me another chance. I'll prove it to you. I'll be the man you deserve. The man the man you thought I was. I stood up, my gaze fixed on his, my voice firm, my resolve unwavering. It's too late, James. You made your choice. Now live with it. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his face pale, his shoulders slumped, his dreams of a Laurent life shattered. He'd tried to win me back, not with love, not with remorse, but with desperation. And I wasn't buying it. Not this time. I was Vivienne Laurent now, and I was done with playing the victim, the fool, the stepping stone. I was in control, and I was moving on. Okay, so the Queen's coronation. Not literally, of course, but it kind of felt that way. I, Vivienne Laurent, the resurrected heiress, the unexpected alpha, was taking my rightful place at the head of the Laurent table. And let's just say my loving family wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but they couldn't deny it. I'd outmaneuvered them, outplayed them, and, let's be honest, I'd outsmarted them. They'd underestimated me, just like James and Melanie had. They'd seen me as a weak, vulnerable woman, a pawn in their game of power and greed. They were wrong. So wrong. I wasn't just Vivienne Laurent, the heiress. I was Cassandra Layton, the survivor, the fighter, the one who was going to win. And when I did, I secured my position in the family, not through threats or intimidation, but through strategy, through intelligence, through being a damn good businesswoman. I took control of the Laurent empire, making decisions, signing deals, and, basically showing them who was boss. Vivian, darling, Isabel, my stepmother, said, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. Are you sure you want to handle this merger yourself? It's quite a complex undertaking. I'm sure, Isabel, I said, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering. I'm more than capable of handling a little complexity. She pursed her lips, a flicker of annoyance crossing her perfectly Botoxed face. Of course, darling, but still. Perhaps you should consult with Charles. He's quite the expert in these matters. I appreciate the suggestion, Isabel, I said, my smile icy, but I think I'll manage. And manage I did. I closed the deal, securing a lucrative merger that expanded the Laurent empire and solidified my position as the head of the family. The cousins, Charles and Emily, watched with a mixture of awe and resentment. They'd been so close to taking control, to inheriting the power, the wealth, the everything, and now I was the one calling the shots, the one making the decisions, the one they had to answer to. Even my father, William, the intimidating patriarch, the self-made billionaire, had to acknowledge my capabilities. He'd been skeptical at first, suspicious of my sudden transformation, my Cassandra-like assertiveness, but he couldn't deny my results. I was making the Laurent empire stronger, more profitable, more powerful. Vivian, he said, his voice gruff but approving, you've surprised me. You're not the woman I thought you were. I'm not the woman anyone thought I was, I said, my voice steady, my gaze meeting his. I'm stronger, smarter, and, let's just say I'm not afraid to fight for what's mine. He nodded, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Good, because the Lawrence, we don't back down. We fight. And we win. And win we did, together, not as a family, not in the traditional sense, but as allies, partners in power, in business, in the game of survival. I'd secured my position, not just as Vivienne Laurent, the heiress, but as a force to be reckoned with, a woman who wouldn't be underestimated, who wouldn't be controlled, who, Well, who wouldn't be denied? And as I sat at the head of the Laurent table, my family gathered around me, their faces a mixture of respect, resentment, and a grudging admiration. I knew I'd won. I'd reclaimed my life, my power, well, my everything. And as I looked out at the cityscape, the Laurent Empire stretching before me, a smile playing on my lips, I thought, this was just the beginning. The first chapter in a new story, a story of power, of triumph, of a woman who wouldn't be denied. I was Vivienne Laurent, and I was unstoppable.